The data in the accompanying table list the weight W, neck size N, and chest size C of 3 bears. These data can be modeled by W equals A plus BN plus CC. And here's the table with the pounds for the weight, the neck size in inches, and the chest size in inches. And you can see the series of numbers 168, 20, 25, 270, 24, 40, and 405, 30, 50. Part A. Set up a system of equations whose solution gives the values for the constants A, B, and C. Part B. Solve the system. Part C. Predict the weight W of a bear with neck size N equals 26 and chest size C equals 44. So I have the important information up here. We now want to create an a system of 3 equations with 3 variables. We'll use the letters A, B, and C as stated above, and I'm going to write the variables first. So we would have A plus 20B plus 25C, and that would equal 168. That's reading off of row number 1. Reading off of row number 2, we would have A plus 24B plus 40C equals 270. And reading off from row 3, we would have A plus 30B plus 50C equals 405. So that's our system of equations. Let's use the matrix method of solving this. So let's write our augmented matrix, which would be 1, 20, 25, our line for 168, and that would be reading from equation number 1. From equation number 2, it would be 1, 24, 40, 270. And from equation number 3, it would be 1, 30, 50, 405. And now we'll use the Gauss-Jordan method of solving this matrix. And so what we would want to do is create a 1 in this position, which is already there. So that's a good thing. We want zeros here and here, and the way we could do that would be to take row number 2 and add negative row number 1. Take row number 3 and add negative row number 1. So that matrix would then become this. Row number 1 remains unchanged, so it's 1, 20, 25, and 168. However, row number 2 is 1 plus a negative 1, or 0. 24 plus a negative 20, or 4. And 40 plus a negative 25, which is 15, and then 270 plus a negative 168, which gives us 102. For row number 3, we're going to add negative row 1, so that would give us 0 here. 30 plus a negative 20 is 10. 50 plus a negative 25 is 25. And 405 plus a negative 168 is 237. Well, next what we'd like to do, of course, is we want either to create a 1 in this position and or we want to create zeros in this position. So what we can do, notice, is leaving this as a 4, we can take row 1 and add negative 5 times row 2. And that would create a 0 here. Similarly, we can create a 0 here by taking row number 3 and adding negative 2.5 times row number 2. So let me write down those row operations. It's row 1 plus negative 5 times row 2. And it's row number 3 plus negative 2.5 times row number 2. Okay, so let's write the matrix with those operations, and I will do that at the top of the next pane. So what we would have for our next matrix is taking row number 1, it would be 1 minus 0 is 1. 1, then we would have 20 minus 5 times 4, so 20 minus 20 is 0. Then we would have 25 minus 5 times 15, or in other words, negative 50. And then in the constant column, we would have 168 minus 5 times 102, and that would give us a result of negative 342. Now, row number 2 is remaining the same, 0, 4, 15, and 102. Row number 3, we're going to add negative 2.5 times row 2. Well, of course, 0 plus 0 is 0. Then we're going to have 10 plus negative 2.5 times 4, which is 10 plus negative 10, or in other words, 0. Then we're going to have 25 plus negative 2.5 times 15. And that's going to give us a result of negative 12.5. And finally, in the constant column, we'll have 237 minus 2.5 times 102. That result would be negative 18. So you can begin to see that we're establishing the ones in the diagonals and zeros in the other positions. Our next operation will be, we're going to take row number 2 and multiply it by 1/4, which will then create the 1 in that position. At the same time, we'll take row number 3 and multiply by negative 1 over 12.5, and that would create the 1 in this position. So let's do those operations and write our resulting matrix. Row number 1 does not change, so it's 1, 0, negative 50, negative 342. And I drew that line a little too long. Now let's take 1/4 of row 2. So 1/4 of 0 is 0, 1/4 of 4 is 1. 1/4 of 15 is 3.75. And 1/4 of 102 is 25.5. And finally, for row number 3, we'll have 0 and then another 0 in those places. Then we'll have a positive 1 there. And now we need to multiply the negative 1 over 12.5 times the negative 18, and that's going to give us a result of positive 1.44. Next, what we're going to do is to get a 0 in this position and a 0 in this position. We do that by taking row number 1 and adding to that 50 times row number 3. 50 times row number 3. To get a 0 in this position, we're going to take row number 2 and then add to that negative 3.75 of row number 3. So that operation yields the following matrix. The 1 remains unchanged, as does the 0. But we now have a 0 in this position. Draw our vertical line, and now we're taking negative 342 plus 50 times the 1.44. That result is negative 270. Row number 2 now. We're going to add again the negative 3.75 of row number 3. So the 0 and 1 remain the same. That is, they're unchanged. The 3.75, of course, gets added to negative 3.75, giving us 0. And now we need 25.5 plus negative 3.75 times 1.44, and that result is 20 and 1/10. For row number 3, it remains the same, 0, 0, 1, 1, and 44 hundredths. Well, you can see now that we have 1s along the diagonal, 0 in all other positions of the matrix, and so what we now can say is that A is equal to negative 270. We can say that B is equal to 20 and 1/10, and that C is equal to 1 and 44 hundredths. Taking those values, A, B, and C, we can now say that our equation for W is W equals A, negative 270, plus B times N, so 20 and 1/10 times N, plus C times C, so 1.44 times capital C. We can now use this equation to solve the final question, part C, which asks us to find the weight of a bear that has a neck size of 26 and it has a chest size of 44. So this would be our equation to give us the value of W, the weight. If we substitute those numbers into a calculator, we'll find it's 315 and 96 hundredths. And if we just round that off, we could say the weight of the bear is about 316 pounds.